Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Shri Krishna
Radhe
Chaitanya
Gurukananda Bhagwan Jai.
Come back to the Bhagavad Gita.
Hare Krishna everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So
We'll start with text 1. Chanting. We'll work our way through the 11th chapter now.
Arjun Vacha Madanugrahaya Paramam Riha Madhyatma Sangitam Yatvayoktam Vachastena Moho Ayam Vigato Mama. Arjun said, by my hearing the instructions you have kindly given me about these most confidential spiritual subjects, my illusion has now been dispelled.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. This chapter reveals Krishna as the cause of all causes. He is even the cause of the Mahavishnu, from whom the material universes emanate. Krishna is not an incarnation. He is the source of all incarnations. That has been completely explained in the last chapter. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he says that his illusion is over.
This means that Arjuna no longer thinks of Krishna as a mere human being, as a friend of his, but as the source of everything. Arjuna is very enlightened and is glad that he has such a great friend as Krishna. But now he's thinking that although he may accept Krishna as the source of everything, others may not. So, in order to establish Krishna's divinity for all, he's requesting Krishna in this chapter to show his universal form.
Madhav Prabhu. Unmute Prabhu.
8.
Actually, when one sees the universal form of Krishna, one becomes frightened like Arjun. But Krishna is so kind that after showing it, he converts himself again into his original form. Arjun agrees to what Arjun agrees to what Krishna has said several times. Krishna is speaking to him just for his benefit. So Arjun acknowledges that all this is happening to him by Krishna's grace. He is now convinced that Krishna is the cause of all causes and is present in everyone's heart as the super soul.
Does anybody have a question or comment about this verse and purport, beginning the 11th chapter?
This is probably the most psychedelic of all the chapters. It's
It is
opening up the vision beyond the ability of the system to withstand. It's
Yes. It's an interesting vision we'll see, but as we'll see as we go through the chapter, ultimately Arjuna really wants to see just Krishna in his original form. And this universal form is meant to be like a universal instruction for everybody else, because Arjuna is very satisfied with his personal relationship with Krishna. I wanted to just hearken back to the last verse of the 10th chapter, where Krishna says to Arjuna, "But what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe." It's a very interesting comment he makes, because if we take this at face value, this next chapter is where he's, with a single fragment of his energy, he's going to show this whole universal form. And Krishna is ultimately saying, it's really subordinate to my eternal form, but let's take a look anyway. It's Aishvarya. It's the mode of opulence, and Arjuna really wants to be in the mode of friendship. Sakya. Oh yeah, sweet Madhurya, sweet friendship. So does anybody else? That was a good comment by Bill. Any other thoughts?
I also wanted to say this is a very cathartic moment, because like Arjuna has finally reached a deeper understanding that Krishna was going for from the very beginning, and he is at a point where he is prepared to achieve what the goal was that he was doubting, to accomplish his duty on the battlefield.
Yes.
And Krishna has also declared himself to be the source of everything in chapter 10. And then after the verses 8, 9, 10, and 11 are the core verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And after those verses, he is manifesting some of his opulences, like he did in chapter 7. Now he's doing it in chapter 10. So now Arjuna is completely convinced that Arjuna is completely convinced that Krishna is the source of everything.
The first paragraph of this purport is very short, but it's very important. Krishna is not an avatar. He's avatari. He's the source of all avatars. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Ishvara, that's Brahma Samhita, first verse. Ishvara Parama Krishna. Krishna is the Parama Ishvara. He's the greatest controller, supreme controller. Satchit Ananda Vigraha. He's the embodiment of what? Eternity, knowledge, and bliss. Anadir, Adir Govinda. Govinda is the source of the source. I mean, there's no beginning. He's the beginningless source of God, of everything. And then Sarva Karana Karanam. That means he is the cause of all causes. So he's avatari, not avatar. And there we now Gajendra is so kindly putting that on the board. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all, and he has no other origin. And he is the prime cause of all causes. So Krishna is the Alpha and the Omega. Okay.
Prabhuji, this is Shiva.
Yeah, Shiva.
I have some people say that the Vishwaroop of Krishna has a special name called Yogeshwar. Is that accurate?
Well, Yogeshvara means the master of all yogis and all yoga. But if we go to the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, Krishna is called Yogeshvara, Yogesh or Yogeshvara. He's the master of all the yogis. Yogeshvara, double Yogesh. Okay. So this universal form is universal only within this material world. It's not an eternal form of God. It's a manifestation. It is, in one sense, a show. It's a show by Krishna to give us an understanding of how powerful he is. So again, in one sense, that'd be Yogeshvara. He's a master of the magic.
So he is called Yogeshwar, but not just because he had shown the universal form.
Yes, he's beyond everything. Yes, he's the master of everyone. So I guess we can go on to the next verse.
Sure.
Unless there's more comments. Okay.
Bhavapayo hi bhutanam shruto vistarasyo maya tatvatah kamal patraksha mahatamyamapi chavyayam. O lotus-eyed one, I have heard from you in detail about the appearance and disappearance of every living entity and have realized your inexhaustible glories. Chino?
Arjuna addresses Lord Krishna as lotus-eyed. Krishna's eyes appear just like the petals of a lotus flower, out of his joy, for Krishna has assured him in a previous chapter, Aham Krishnasya Jagata Prabhava Pralayas Tatha. I am the source of the appearance and disappearance of this entire material manifestation. Arjuna has heard of this from the Lord in detail.
Mayur?
Arjun further knows that in spite of his being the source of all appearances and disappearances, he is aloof from them. As the Lord has said in the 9th chapter, he is all-pervading, yet he is not personally present everywhere. That is the inconceivable opulence of Krishna, which Arjun admits that he has thoroughly understood. Hare Krishna.
Questions or comments?
I think one thing that really struck out to me was that Arjun realized Krishna's inexhaustible glories, because as humans, like we can't, I mean, beyond maybe 1,000 or so, we can't picture big numbers, let alone infinite. So the fact that Arjun's able to kind of perceive how infinite Krishna is really cool. And I think that's a goal that we all aspire to in our lifetimes.
In the 9th chapter, Krishna says a number of things here, beginning with the 4th verse of the 9th chapter, because here it talks about how in the 9th chapter he talks about how he manifests the entire universe. And there's several verses we can read here from the 9th chapter. We'll just read the English, starting with 9:4. By me, in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them.
The next verse, number 5, and yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I'm not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation.
We can read 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, Sonali.
Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature. And at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again.
And 8.
The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end.
So these verses really tie into this 11th chapter, because we see how Krishna talks about he pervades the entire universe, and everything is coming from him. Again, these are his inexhaustible glories, as Chinu brought out so nicely. And he's aloof, even though he controls everything. He's really.
It is said that Sheshanag, who is constantly glorifying the Supreme Lord, has been speaking since time immemorial and cannot come to the end of the descriptions or the description of the glories of Sri Krishna. They are unlimited, absolutely unlimited.
Any thoughts about this?
Well, yeah. So the upshot of chapter 11 is now that we have this description of what it is. Now I want to see it. I want the peak experience.
Yes.
And there's a vast range of yogic techniques to try and get a peak experience, pranayama and fasting and all sorts of austerities in order to get this peak experience, which can drive you insane. I mean, it can be way too much to handle. And in fact, Arjuna does find it too much to handle.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's a small part of the spiritual path as a peak experience. But it does help, and that's why he's asking for it, because it orients a person is to the nature of the path and the nature of the relationship.
And Arjuna wants to make sure that everybody understands by Krishna showing these opulences that he's definitely the supreme.
We as devotees, as bhaktas, as devotees of Krishna, we don't actually seek out peak experiences as some others might, but ultimately we have the peak experience in relationship with Krishna in Braj, in Krishna in Vrindavan. So that's the peak. If you seek the peak experience, you get a peak that's not really the peak. But if you seek to serve Krishna, he gives you really the peak experience in loving relationship with him. So that's really the message being driven behind the Bhagavad Gita, is that Arjuna, this is peak, but beyond that is actually our loving relationship.
Well, when we talk about peak experiences, in so many books, people describe things. They are just for the fulfillment of the seeker. But here, it's not the fulfillment of the seeker that is at play. Here is the pleasure of the Supreme Lord.
Fulfillment of God.
The pleasure of the Supreme Lord. And he reciprocates with the seeker. And then in that relationship, in that loving relationship, in all these exchanges, there will be endless peak experiences, but always in connection with the Supreme, not as a separate entity who just tries to understand something for his own self, for his own benefit. So that's a huge difference.
For those of you who would like to, Srila Prabhupada translated and wrote commentary to the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam in the form of Krishna book. And Krishna book talks about the pastimes of the Lord of Krishna, both in Braja and in Mathura and in Dwarka. And it really shows us the loving exchanges that occur between the Lord and his devotees, and how really this is the goal, that we seek not for ourselves, but we seek to enter into a relationship with Krishna where we're seeking to give him pleasure. And in that way, he gives us a peak experience of his love. So it's selfless on our part. But it's a good point that Bill brings up, because in the mundane material world, it's pretty humdrum, and people can get pretty much caught up in just the dull, everyday existence and think that this is everything, and it certainly falls far short of the ultimate reality. Any other thoughts or questions? This has been good questions and good comments by devotees today. I guess we can go to 3.
Sorry. एवमेतद्य तथा तत् त्वमात्मानं परमेश्वर दृष्टुमिच्छामि ते रूपे मैं ईश्वरं पुरुषोत्तम. O greatest of all personalities, O supreme form, though I see you here before me in your actual position, as you have described yourself, I wish to see how you have entered into this cosmic manifestation. I want to see that form of yours. Bill Robinson, Prabhu? Bill, Prabhu?
Bill?
Okay. The Lord said that because he entered into the material universe by his personal representation, the cosmic manifestation has been made possible and is going on. Now, as far as Arjuna is concerned, he is inspired by the statements of Krishna, but in order to convince others in the future who may think that Krishna is an ordinary person, Arjuna desires to see him actually in his universal form, to see how he is acting from within the universe, although he is apart from it.
Nishant?
Arjuna's addressing the Lord as Purushottama is also significant. Since the Lord is the supreme personality of Godhead, he is present within Arjuna himself, though therefore he knows the desire of Arjuna, and he can understand that Arjuna has no special desire to see him in his universal form, for Arjuna is completely satisfied to see him in his personal form of Krishna. But the Lord can understand also that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to convince others. Arjuna did not have any personal desire for confirmation. Krishna also understands that Arjuna wants to see the universal form to set a criterion, for in the future there would be so many impostors who would pose themselves as incarnations of God. The people, therefore, should be careful. One who claims to be Krishna should be prepared to show his universal form to confirm his claims to the people.
Prabhupada liked that a lot. And when people would say, I am God, he would say, well, if you're God, then let's see you do something like lift a mountain, or let's see you do something like show your universal form, or let's see you manifest yourself in 16,108 forms to have relationships with 16,108 wives. I mean, he would use these examples to say that you're claiming to be something that you just have no right to claim.
Now, Will Chamberlain did that.
Well, yeah, well, we're not talking about Wilt Chamberlain now, okay? But and also Wilt was one after another, not at once. But any case, what really we should understand here is that the Lord, he is unlimited, and that the living entities They can never claim to be unlimited like the Lord. But there's an interesting story that we just heard about Krishna and his qualities, and a man who wanted to be God. Srila Prabhupada was giving a talk, and I think it was in India. I can't remember. I heard the story from someone else who told the story. And in this talk, he was taking questions and answers, and a man came up, he raised his hand and says, "I want to be God." He said, "I want to be God." So Prabhupada didn't say anything. And the man said, "No, I want to be God." And Prabhupada said, "You can't become God." And the man started to become disturbed. And, he's coming from this point of view of the Mayavadi understanding. Prabhupada said, "But you can become greater than God." And the man was left intrigued. He said, "What do you mean?" And Prabhupada showed him a picture of Krishna and Mother Yashoda. And Krishna is running from Mother Yashoda, who is trying to catch him from behind. And Prabhupada said, "Well, who's God here?" And finally he got the man to realize that God's the little fellow there running from his mother. So he said, so God is running from his mother. Who's greater? The mother or God? And he said, the man said, well, Mother Yashoda is greater. And Prabhupada said, yes, Mother Yashoda has become greater than Krishna. How? Through love. Through love. That Krishna allows Mother Yashoda to take a superior position to him because of love. The love of Mother Yashoda. So Mother Yashoda, in one sense, has become greater than God. Actually, if you ask Mother Yashoda, she's always greater than Krishna because she's the mother. There's no question. Similarly, his boyfriends don't tell them that they can't beat him in a wrestling match because they do. They become great. They're just, you think you're a big man, Krishna, but you lost. And then Radharani controls Krishna with her man, her anger. He will come begging, "Oh, please take me back." And so many little games are playing, So through love, we become greater than God.
Krishna allows.
Yeah, Krishna allows us. It's not that we're really greater, but the game is that we're greater. We're greater in love.
And he likes to.
And he loves that.
He loves to be in a subordinate position. He really likes that. But he's the one who is allowing that to happen anyway.
And it's happening here on the battle of Kurukshetra. Who's the charioteer? Krishna.
He's a servant.
He's serving Arjuna. Charioteer is not a very high position in warfare. It's they get they're like they're not even as good as a caddy in the golf course, because the caddy does things like tells the the golfer what club to use. The charioteer just drives.
Chauffeur.
He's a chauffeur. But Krishna, he takes that position out of love for Arjuna. And he saves Arjuna too. Anyway, well, that's all, so many things. But nice questions, nice realizations. It's really good to have input from so many. Any other thoughts or questions here? The word Purushottama is important. Oh, he is, what is it? Since the Lord is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is present within Arjuna himself. Therefore, he knows the desire of Arjuna. So, Kajendra, you want to speak on that?
Yeah. So one is, I think what it's saying is Arjun's addressing the Lord as Purushottam is very significant, because then he realizes that he is the origin of this universe, right? He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But the important aspect also is, of course, as Super Soul, he is present in everyone. He knows the desire of Arjun, and in fact, that way, desire of everyone. In fact, even we I mean, even when sometimes we get a feeling that, oh, and then we figure out that, oh, that's true, what we are feeling about even someone else. And then, like, for example, sometimes, you remember someone who is like miles away from you, and then suddenly you'll get a call from the same person. I'm pretty sure a lot of us might be having that kind of experience at times. So what to say about Lord Sri Krishna? When he is present in everyone, he knows. He, of course, knows the desire of Arjuna. And in this case here, he knows that Arjuna is convinced, but he still wants to see the full Virat Swarup of Lord Sri Krishna.
That's a very good point. And, another interesting point, a little echo here. Another interesting point in relation to what Gajendra Prabhu just said is that the Lord knows what everybody, what Arjuna is thinking or feeling. He also knows what we're feeling in the sense that when it's not that we shouldn't pray, but we should understand that Krishna knows our prayer before we say it. So that Krishna knows really what our desires and needs are. So what's really important is that we should understand that what we desire, Krishna can fulfill. He might not fulfill it like we think we should have it fulfilled, but that if we make our desires pure, then Krishna will fulfill those pure desires, so that our prayer is really our consciousness, and Krishna knows us. So sometimes people are praying, please, please, please help me this way or that way. Well, Krishna already knows, and he'll help the way that he knows is best for us. Sometimes we don't understand that at the time, but we need to understand that Krishna ultimately is giving us the best solutions for our life.
And sometimes we may pray or wish for something that actually gets in the way of our spiritual development. So we say, Krishna, you do with us, you do with me, whatever you want, because whatever he does is totally perfect. And not only is perfect, the motivation is pure love for us. So what do we need to ask for? He's providing the very best, even when we have a difficult situation. That is also for our benefit. Everything. As soon as we connect to the process of devotion, Krishna takes charge. Not that we have to just sit down and wait for him to do things. No, we have to be active. But whatever is happening in our lives, Krishna is behind it for our purification and for enhancing our desire to connect with him.
But we still have to pray, right? Because till Draupadi asked for Krishna's help, Krishna didn't help him.
Okay.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, we can pray, but the prayer ideally should be a prayer, but there's different kinds of prayers. We can ask for something in a prayer, or we can glorify. So the prayers ideally would be prayers of glorification. And there are so many examples in the Bhagavatam from different personalities who are reciting prayers to the Supreme Lord, like Lord Shiva, like Indra, like after some debacles, some of these demigods are praying because they realize what a mistake they made. And these prayers, they're not to ask for anything for themselves. They are simply glorifying the Supreme Lord. And those are the ideal prayers. And Srila Prabhupada says, if you want to pray, just follow in the footsteps of these personalities in the Bhagavatam who are glorifying the Supreme Lord. Those are the ideal prayers. Not that one cannot pray for things. One can, of course. There are other ways of praying which they're better. Let's put it this way.
And actually, even in the Bible, when Jesus' disciples say, "How should we pray, Master?" He said, "Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And there's more. In other words, don't pray for anything. Our Father art in heaven, hallowed. All glory to the name of God. Thy will be done, and whatever you want. So
So
that our life is dedicated to him.
And it's not so hard to understand that when somebody comes to us to ask for something versus somebody else who comes to us to say, oh, your speech was very good. I really like the way you dress. That glorifies the person who is listening is much more pleasing than the person who is begging for this. Can I please give me this? Can you please provide a job, a good job opportunity? Can you give me some money so I can buy a better car? Versus the person who is just glorifying. It's just common sense. We can see clearly that
Absolutely.
the prayer of glorification is much more, how do you call it? Goes to the heart, not to the pocket. Goes to the heart. To the person who's listening.
Yes. Yeah.
You can only imagine that how tolerant Krishna is. If we had somebody always coming to us asking for stuff, we eventually would make sure that we had them on speed dial. I mean, on our caller ID, and we would never answer the phone.
Yep. Makes sense. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhu.
We have time for one. I think time for one more.
Yep.
Number 4.
Rajendra Prabhu, do we have time for one more?
Can I say something about this verse, the comment we were discussing? I just something wanted to say, because in that purport, actually, the word Purushottam is the very, very key, because it is stated that it is most significant. It is very important to understand what Purushottam means, how it is significant, because that's, I see it like the way I understand and I take it, that what is happening, Purushottam, Purush is man, a Purush, and Uttam means the best of the men. So that's what the literal meaning of Purushottam is, the best of the men. So again, when we're talking about that Krishna is in everyone's heart as a super soul, but that is not a person. Super soul is something different. So that's why he is addressing Purushottam, because for 2 reasons. He wants to see as a person, not as a super soul. Actually, he wants to see Arjun. He knows him as a person where he can relate to a person. To relate to super soul is sometimes maybe a Jnani's concept, not a personalist concept. So he wants to see him as a person, of course, and as a supreme person, because then he can relate. Because why supreme person? Because he's beyond anybody's individual person's ability, and also establishing a relationship between a person, to establish a relationship, know something as a super soul is very, very difficult, kind of abstract. It's not more personal to relate. That's why he says person and supreme person. That's how I understand why he emphasizing on Purushottam part, that word, addressing him as Purushottam.
This is what's important, especially, thank you, Madhava, because devotees understand the Bhagavad Gita given to us by our acharyas as it is. It is not this doesn't become like a metaphor or an intellectual exercise. We're actually understanding how literally Krishna is telling us that, or Arjuna is telling us here, Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is that person. And that's, thank you for bringing that remark up, Madhava, because that's very important. We should hear, we're a little bit towards the end now. Let's ask if there's any really enlivening.
Any light?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah.
Good. Oh, yes. As you know, I've spent a lot of time in the sciences, and they don't like to go beyond the realm of experimentation and observation and measurement. If you can't, if it's not with, because otherwise it's just, you can say anything you want and it's not answerable to anything. So what Arjuna wants is the experience. He knows he can't understand and he can't know, but he can experience.
Right.
And that's, so the experience is that form of validation and essentially an experiment.
That's really a good point. Prabhupada said Krishna consciousness is a science you practice on yourself. By chanting, by taking up the process, you'll see yourself change. And that is an experience. Very good point.
And we can never be convinced of something unless we experience it and we realize it's true.
Yes.
The same thing with any religion. A religion could be something really nice that sounds very good and makes you like a better person, but to realize all of these things that are present in these books, to come to this realization is an experience. And when we experience that, then we know that it's real.
Yes. Good points.
Yeah.
Any other points?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one more point, Prabhuji. Like here you can see Yogeshwar. So Shiva Prabhu's point, I just wanted to tell that. So Arjuna is addressing Lord Sri Krishna as Yogeshwar even before he had shown the Virat Swarup.
Yes, yes.
So he's the master of all mystic power. So that's why addressing him as Yogeshwar. But not just because of he shows the universal form. So,
good point, Prabhuji. Good point.
And it's good that you highlighted the word there so we can see it. Someone else?
So Prabhuji, my takeaway from today is really that, it's a constant reminder that Krishna knows what is best for us. And we should not be asking for anything. So having that constant, attitude of surrender and to do everything in the service of Krishna. So this was my takeaway.
Thank you.
Wonderful. That's very good.
I would like to ask that we could see each other in person sometime in a park for a
Yes.
Well, my toe hurts. I know what to ask for.
Yeah, but if you want to eat like something really nice, sweet, then you have to ask Sonali to prepare
it. Anytime.
Like if you just pray to Sonali, she won't prepare the sweet.
We do the sweet.
Meet the Rani.
All right, so I think we will, because we had Ram Navami day before yesterday, we'll play the Ram Bhajan.
Yes.
It's a 15 minutes kirtan, so let's just stay for 15 minutes, yeah?
Thank you. That's always wonderful.
Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Shri Ramchandra Kripal Bhaj Man Haran Bhav Bhaya Darunam, Shri Ramchandra Kripal Bhaj Man Haran Bhav Bhaya Darunam, Shri Ramchandra Kripal Bhaj Man Haran Bhav Bhaya Darunam, Shri Ramchandra Kripal Bhaj Man Haran Bhav Bhaya Darunam, Navakanjalo लोचन कंज मुख कर कंज पद कंजारुणम नव कंज लोचन कंज मुख कर कंज पद कंजारुणम चंद्र कृपाल भज मन हरण भव भय दारुणम श्री राम जय राम श्री राम जय राम कंदर्प अगणित अमित छवि नव नील नीरज सुंदरम कंदर्प अगणित अमित छवि नव नील नीरज सुंदरम पटपीत मानहु तड़ित रुचि सुचि नौमि जनक सुतावरं तड़ित रुचि सुचि नौमि जनक सुतावरं पटपीत मानहु तड़ित रुचि सुचि नौमि जनक सुतावरं चंद्र कृपाल भज मन हरण भव भय दारुणम श्री राम जय भज दीन बंधु दीनेश दानव दैत्य वंश निकंदनम भज दीन बंधु दीनेश दानव दैत्य वंश निकंदनम रघुनंदयानंद कंद कौशल चंद्र दशरथ नंदनम रघुनंदयानंद कंद कौशल चंद्र दशरथ नंदनम चंद्र कृपालु भज मन हरण भव भय दारुणम् कुंडल तिलक चारु उदार अंग विभूषणम् शिरमुकुट कुंडल तिलक चारु उदार अंग विभूषणम् चापधर संग्राम जित खर दूषणम् आजानुभुज शर चापधर संग्राम जित खर दूषणम् चंद्र कृपाल भज मन हरण भव भय दारुणम् श्री राम जय इति वदति तुलसीदास शंकर शेष मुनि मनरंजनम् इति वदति तुलसीदास शंकर शेष मुनि मनरंजनम् इति वदति तुलसीदास शंकर शेष मुनि मनरंजनम् मम हृदय कंज निवास कुरु कामादि खलदल रंजनम् मम हृदय कंज निवास कुरु कामादि खलदल गंजनम् श्री रामचंद्र कृपालु भज मन हरण भव भय दारुणम् श्री राम जय राम श्री राम जय राम जय Shri Ram Jai Ram, 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram.
Right.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
for a wonderful association again. Offer our best to Parag.
Hare Krishna.
And,
Hare Krishna.
and hopefully everybody soon. Shiva, nice to meet you.
Yep. Have a nice
Hare
weekend.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Shinu. Everyone have a good weekend. Madhava Prabhu, Hare Krishna. Always good to see you. Hare Krishna. Haribo.
Haribo.
Haribo.